Good morning, good afternoon, and good evening, and welcome to Energy Speaks Back, powered by B2B Energy. My name is Paul Webb, and I'm the founder of B2B Energy, and I'm also your host. Weekly, I present to you energy experts from around the world. Welcome to episode 127. Our purpose, as always, is to provide a good understanding of energy management knowledge from around the world, which is available today for us to deliver savings that impact on our planet. We would like to thank utility people who are creating a better career and future for people in our industry, and Esther Energy, who are our certificate partners. My guest today is from Canada, and he shares his passion and experience around the world through his knowledge and his search for innovation. So without any further ado, I give you Barry Osmun. Good afternoon, Barry. How are you today?
Good afternoon, Paul. Yeah, good to see you. As I was telling you in our conversation before, I've been a fan for a while. So yeah, I feel honored and privileged to take part in one of your podcasts. So
Well,
thank
that's
you.
brilliant. The honour's all ours because we know you're going to give some good content back, I'm sure, to the energy experts who listen into this as well as yourself. So we've met through LinkedIn, which is one of the platforms I use for connecting with other energy experts. But for the benefit of our audience today, can you give us some background and some origin story to where you come from into the industry?
Yeah, it's kind of interesting how I got into this, Paul, and I suppose most people have an interesting story. But I have spent my entirety in my 36-year career in architectural sales. So I worked for about 14, 15 years for a brick manufacturer. So calling on architects, engineers, building developers, getting products specified, that type of thing and spend time in the window and door business. And so, long story short, from 2018 to 21, I was partners with a couple from Toronto, Ontario, Chinese Canadian husband and wife who were engineers. And we were basically doing building design, project management, that type of thing, but importing our products from Asia primarily. So we were doing, high-end aluminum cladding, that type of thing. And even when COVID hit, we were able to pivot and use their connections in China to source PPE, which was badly needed, certainly here in Canada and throughout the
Mm-hmm.
world. So we were able to kind of pivot, through that and supply Canadian hospitals with that product through COVID, which, helped us get through that crisis in the construction industry. And yeah, we were doing very well. And I hate to use the word epiphany, but I guess I will because, it kind of fits. I had been visiting with my little 4-year-old granddaughter and my son and daughter-in-law, and spent a couple days out on the playground with my little granddaughter. And I don't just sitting there watching. I said, you know what? The future is at stake for her. And the future right now with our climate is, was not looking great. And the 4-hour drive back to Halifax after spending time with them, I just, between leaving her and coming home, I decided, you know what, I have to do better. I have all this experience, all this education, all this training. And, why not put it to use in renewables? And the company was profitable. We were doing well. But as you can appreciate, some of the factories in Asia, have a huge environmental footprint. And, coupled with the fact that we had to put them on container ships to bring it to Canada, I just thought, you know what, I can do better. So walked in the door that evening and said to my wife, I said, honey, you better sit down. I'm going to close this very profitable company that I've been operating, and I'm going to go into something called renewables. So
Can I
that
ask you
was a
what she
long
said?
that was a long night.
All right.
But anyway, so yeah, informed my partners, I was going to close the company, and they respected my decision. And so I started AzSpecd Solutions.
Right.
And what was a little bit different about what I wanted to do, Paul, was that I didn't want to do the same old in renewables, like rooftop solar, huge wind turbines. Not that, that's great. I'm starting to dabble in a little bit of that now. But really what I wanted to do was really scour the world, which is how I started listening to your podcast, for ideas, for innovations that perhaps my education and experience would instill a bit of optimism or trust in these innovators to
Hmm.
let me try to market it here in Canada. So yeah, I started with the very first company I contacted was a Canadian company out of Toronto called Mitrex BIPV, and Mitrex had at around the same time that I was starting AzSpecd, they had started a company, just finished building a huge factory outside of Toronto that manufactures building integrated photovoltaic products. So, solar glass, solar windows, and this great solar cladding that allows us to either reclad existing buildings in this beautiful cladding, or, rather than, um, using what I was using previous to AzSpecd and like aluminum cladding, replace that with this solar cladding that generates, not only gives you a beautiful facade, but generates electric power to use in the building. So they were the very first company I reached out to, and yeah, they said, sure, we'd love to have you promote our product, and so I've been working with them, and then I just went from there, Paul, to look at, continued the internet as our friend. And so, continued through podcasts like yours and just, doing Google searches, trying to find, things that we could use here in Canada that weren't here. So, started out that way and just kind of added to the portfolio as time went along. So
So have you done many of the cladding projects from
just
Mitrex?
yeah, so Mitrex, as I said, they were really just getting off the ground. We've kind of grown together. So
Right.
when I opened AzSpecd in 2021, they were just putting the finishing touches on their factory. Um, the good thing is that they had spent years before that kind of, going through the testing. And so everything was in place. Once they
Yeah,
got the
yeah.
factory up and running, we were good to go. So uh, Mitrex just completed their, or have almost completed their first project here in Halifax, which is recladding of a 1970s era precast structure at St. Mary's University. So when that's all complete, which should be probably early in October, that building will have received a nice aesthetics facelift.
Hmm.
But more importantly, is it's going to be 6,000 square feet of cladding that is going to generate close to 100,000 kilowatts of green electricity per year for the university to use. So that's kind of the first one in our region. But Mitrex has been very busy worldwide. They've done installations in Toronto. They completed one in Dubai not too long ago, of all places. You wouldn't think that would be a green
No.
energy hotspot, but and so yeah, we're, as you know, Paul, it's really the biggest issue we have in renewables, and especially innovative renewables, and which I mean by that are probably products that have been around, 5 to 10 years or less, is just gaining the confidence of the architects, the engineers, the general consumer. They want to see it being used,
Yeah.
and the funny thing about this project at St. Mary's in Halifax was, I had spent a year and a half doing trade shows, lunch and learns, podcasts, what have you, telling people about this great product. And, invariably the answer was always, well, yeah, that's nice, but what have you done around here? So since St. Mary's started up in their construction, it's been great. They've done some press releases and that type of thing, and I've been able to do some site visits where people can go up and just have a look at it, and they say, "Oh yeah, there it is." There,
Yeah.
so
Do you know, I know,
that's yeah.
do you know, I actually know that company, and I've interviewed Corey. Do you know Corey?
Corey, yes, yeah. Corey Fry is the sales manager, and
Yeah, yeah.
yeah, Corey's been an awesome support for me. And Corey, as a sales manager, he faces many of the same challenges that I do with a new product. He spends a lot of time educating, doing
Mm,
seminars and that type of thing. But I can tell you, Paul, like any product, there's other BIPV manufacturers in the world, but I can tell you honestly that Mitrex has, in my mind, the most complete, extensive BIPV product line in the world. They've been able to differentiate themselves very quickly from the competition in many ways. You know, Most notably, I think, is aesthetics,
yeah, yeah.
because the two biggest objections we hear the most in renewables or green energy are aesthetics and price. And those are two objections that it could be an architect, could be a homeowner, could be anybody. They're going to throw that out: aesthetics and price. Well, if you look at the Mitrex product line, my goodness, the aesthetics they can do virtually any color or texture that you
Yeah,
want,
exactly.
and
And
it's easy
logos,
to install.
etc. You can have
Yeah,
logos, branding, etc. Tell me,
yeah,
you talked
yeah.
about the challenges there. I'm keen to know what are the challenges from your audience, the client. What you mentioned aesthetics, and you mentioned
Yeah.
obviously cost. Is that the main drivers? What are the drivers for them?
I think those are two main drivers in renewables in general, are aesthetics and cost, and certainly if you want a comparable, you could talk to my friends that have been doing solar roof installs for years, and the price in that sector has slowly, come down
Yeah.
substantially,
Mm,
I think, mainly to competition, to more manufacturers, but here in Canada, primarily, I think government investment, uh, you know, uh, consumer grants, that type of thing. So that the price part has been addressed, but there's still a sector, that my friends in that business will tell me that, they go and they go meet with a husband and wife, and, present a quote and that type of thing. And, they agree that the ROI is where they want it to be. The price is
yeah.
right. But, sometimes, one of them will say, well, I don't really want those ugly, their words, ugly black panels on my roof.
Mm,
So you have to deal with the aesthetics issue. So, uh, reverting back to Mitrex BIPV, certainly the initial kind of trailblazers in BIPV, they were traditionally, just black panels like you had on your roof.
yeah.
Very functional, but they didn't address that aesthetics component. And so what was happening was architects were saying, you know what, you're not going to put that ugly thing on the side of my creation,
Mm,
so you had to face that. So Mitrex has been able to develop their product line so that, they've just blown the aesthetics argument. It's not even in the discussion anymore.
Yeah.
So,
What is it?
and
Is there a
that makes it neat.
is there a crisis with the cost of energy in Canada at the moment?
Yeah, certainly in Canada, it's a huge crisis, and depends on the region of Canada or the province that you're talking about. But some are better than others.
Right.
But here in Nova Scotia, where I live and work, it's we're upwards of about 20 cents a kilowatt hour for power and rising.
Mm,
And more importantly, is that the government has set very aggressive carbon emission reduction targets for 2030. So in Nova Scotia, we're still relying on coal-fired plants primarily to
right.
generate our electricity. So it's a combination crisis, I guess, Paul, of rising energy costs, coupled with the announced desire by the government to bring those, to bring in tougher, introduce more renewable standards. So certainly in Canada overall, the cost is in line now with what government's investing in grants and that type of thing is now the cost. I've seen even in 2 years, Paul, with the introduction of new tax rebates and that type of thing, that the cost has become not a moot point, but certainly your ROI is manageable now.
Yeah, yeah.
Even 2 years ago, I think the ROI on a solar roof could be, 10, 15 years. Now with the grants, the combination of the grants that are out there for homeowners, as well as the, implicit rise in energy costs, the ROI is less than 5 years now. So it's people are looking at it and say, okay, this makes sense.
Yeah.
We should do this. So, but overall, as I mentioned, early in this podcast, that Canada as a country has been playing catch up.
Right.
So we're still when it comes to renewable energy as a whole, we're still well beyond.
Right.
I think I was what numbers are you looking at in UK now?
It's
I was
quite
reading in
high.
our
It's quite high.
yeah yeah I think
Some days
it's
we have no um, fossil fuels generating energy. Um, and
right,
them days happen, and we don't doesn't happen all the time. We have suffered when we haven't had much sun, much wind,
of
believe it or
course,
not,
yeah.
because we have put a lot of investment in our wind energy generation. But sometimes it does drop, but it's in the low single figures many,
Yeah,
many times.
we're not anywhere near that in any region of the country. You know, if you're to factor in, and this is, an ongoing philosophical argument, if you're to factor in hydropower,
Yeah, yeah,
which, some people refer to as renewables, but it's kind of a gray area, but at least it's not coal, I
yeah, yeah.
guess. And if you're to factor in hydrogen, or sorry, not hydrogen, but hydroelectric, certainly, that number increases. But, I would dare say, Paul, that, as a country, we're probably at the 20% or less
Right. So
number as
just say
far
you're
as what we're
coming from
generating. And
behind. You're coming from
yeah, we're
behind.
playing catch up.
Yeah,
We're
yeah,
playing catch up, and you know, that can be viewed as two ways. It can be viewed as detrimental because, we are behind, but I, being an optimist, I look at it as an opportunity,
yeah, yeah.
in that, government does realize that we have to, put a lot of money into this sector. And certainly in the past couple of years, we've seen, great advances.
And then your focus, is it on the domestic world or into the commercial world?
It's more commercial only because that's my background, Paul. That's, where I
Yeah,
spent,
yeah.
majority of my career. But there are, certainly spin-offs or, cross-marketing opportunities. For instance, one product I represent is Phillips and Temro, a large automotive aftermarket company out of Minnesota, and they manufacture EV chargers.
Right.
So, they really shine in the commercial aspect because they do a lot of work with large, with what we call MURBs, multi-unit residential buildings, apartment buildings, and that type of thing, and
Hmm.
they can scale up very quickly. But so, a lot of my work with them is involved in that sector, but certainly I get a lot of calls from the Paul Webbs of the world who might be living in Toronto or whatever and just bought an EV and they want a simple level 2 chargers to
Yeah,
install.
yeah,
So uh it's a nice combination of both. And I find in the renewable sector that the commercial end of things kind of drives the residential interest. Whereas in other businesses I've been involved with, it's almost been the opposite, where residential trends and usage tends to attract the interest of the commercial end. So
and then you mentioned, not sure if you mentioned it offline or during the conversation in when you were talking about your origin story. What you talk about solar, have you got other technologies? You mentioned EV just then. You sort of quite
yeah,
widespread regarding renewable technologies that you offer?
yeah, it's been so, you know, I've been careful in really, really not wanting to grow too fast, especially as a one person business.
Yeah,
I want to
yeah,
be able to service what I have. But so, the Mitrex was that was a no-brainer. That was the
yeah.
first phone call I made.
That would
But,
have been for me as well in that area. I think it's a great
yes,
product. Yeah,
exactly. Yeah. And, nice Canadian company. So I could go visit them anytime. And
yeah,
but yeah, I followed up very quickly with a company called the RainStick Shower, which was invented by a young Canadian couple who now live in Vancouver. And they invented a shower, Paul. That's just amazing. Their shower allows you in real time to save 80% of your water usage and energy usage as you shower.
wow,
So how it works is shower water comes out of the shower head just like you do now, but it goes into a filtration system which filters out the hair and the soap, that type of thing, and then the water uh, returns up a separate tube where it's treated by UV light, which kills any bacteria,
yeah,
comes back out the shower head, and is fresh fed with 20% fresh hot water to keep it hot. So they were the next company that I reached out to, and again, they had only just launched. They hadn't even manufactured their first product. So I kind of grew with them, and now that's starting to take off. But
brilliant.
the big thing with that product, Paul, is that we tend to take water for granted, and
Yeah,
certainly in Canada, I know we do because there's always that misconception, and we got tons of it.
mm,
But with climate change the past few years, we've seen wells drying up at unforeseen amounts. Here in Nova Scotia, we live on the coast, and we hear of wells drying up all the time. So we got to stop taking water for granted. So here's a shower that, and I don't know, Paul, if if you had teenagers in your life, but
Yeah.
I remember when I had one, my son almost wanting to kick that bathroom door down because the half-hour shower, and I could just see the power meter just
Yeah. Yeah.
spinning, right? So, with this, it allows us to regulate that, and it's cut your water and your energy power bills down substantially. And recently, I became involved with the First Nations family, indigenous family. We're launching a renewable energy company that's focused on indigenous groups. And sadly, one of the long-standing issues here in Canada with many of our First Nations communities has been not only water quality, but just lack of water, you know.
Yeah.
So this is going to, allow us to hopefully introduce these products into those communities so that, people can enjoy a shower and not have to, worry about every drop that's going down the drain. So, yeah, that's been kind of neat. I mentioned the Philips and Temro Evo charges. That's probably the one or the one traditional
Yeah.
renewable energy product that I've got is EV chargers. But even with Philips, they're a very innovative company and they're doing a lot of neat things too. So yeah, I just kind of picked and chose as I went along and talked to different companies. The file that we're really active on right now is a company out of Germany called Loveside. And Loveside has been manufacturing vertical wind turbines. So I'm sure you've seen them throughout Europe in your travels. But, you know, the turbines that we're used to seeing here in Canada are the huge behemoths, the large 100-meter tall plus
Yeah.
wind turbines that you see on mountains and that type of thing. But these turbines are only about 10 meters high and they're really, really quiet and they're aesthetically pleasing. They come in
Yeah.
different colors. They almost look like a flower when they're not turning, or an Art
Yeah. Yeah.
Deco statue. So we're slowly introducing that to the Canadian market because my focus has always been on I guess urbanizing renewables. I just wanted to find products uh, that we could easily introduce into any community without disturbing that community.
Yeah.
And these little turbines. Listen, they're not going to power a whole city. Yeah, the average vertical wind turbine will give you about 8,000 kilowatts of power. These are very easily installed. We can put them on rooftops. We can put them on waterfronts, city parks, what have you. So,
I
yeah,
like the diversity of what you've gone for there. You're talking solar, you're talking wind, you got the showers.
yeah,
So in my books, it's heating, cooling, lighting, power, energy management. Are you trying to cover all the aspects?
yeah.
Will you always be looking for something new to bring into the
Always.
mix? Right.
Always,
That's
but
amazing.
but always being cognizant, Paul, of my limitations, and you need to be cognizant of what the potential market is here in
Yeah.
Canada. What do people even want these products? So,
Yeah.
much of my time before I make a decision to represent or promote a product is to do my due diligence through, thankfully, so many years in the business, I can reach out to architects, engineers, what have you, and say, look, just give me your honest feedback. Would you use this?
Yeah.
And so yeah, it's like water, wind, energy, water, wind, sun, that type of thing, covering your basis, and that's kind of what I've been trying to do. But I also want to find products that are complementary to each other. So, for example, one of the issues we have here in Canada, and many parts of the world, certainly UK, is limitations as far as weather and time of day and that type of thing for solar.
Hmm.
You know, it's is it cloudy? Is it foggy? We're heading into winter here in Canada, so the days are going to be shorter. So that's going to condense the time that you can produce solar. So, my thoughts are that adding a small wind element to that mix is going to help alleviate that because I'm no meteorologist, but I do know many days here on the east coast of Canada when the sun isn't shining, the wind is blowing
Yeah.
because there's a storm brewing or something. So by implementing wind energy with the solar, that's going to up your production so that you're not losing capacity, I guess, on days where the sun isn't shining. So, and companies like Louveside, they're actually working on integrating their small wind turbines into solar. For instance, solar farms,
Yeah.
which use a traditional large, ground-mounted panels. Uh, they're playing with some prototypes right now, doing some testing where they'd be able to intermittently put in a small wind turbine with these ground-mounted panels, which will add 30% energy production to your solar system. So yeah, just always trying to look at, okay, how anything I bring on, how would that complement or, fit with what I have now? So,
Being an entrepreneur in your field here, and you mentioned you're a one man
yeah.
team as such. Where are your individual challenges? You're trying to juggle your business operation, your sales, your operations. Where are your challenges in your business?
Yeah, certainly. I mean, certainly time. Time is something that and any entrepreneur would say that if they, aside from more money, which sometimes buys you time,
Yeah,
but
yeah,
if we had more hours in the day, I guess would be the biggest thing. Because as a startup entrepreneur in any business, you're doing it all. You're switching hats almost
yeah,
on an hourly basis from doing the most basic quotation for one EV charger to, spending hours on doing a project study and estimate for, something could be $1 million or
yeah.
more. So, and then, invoicing and accounts payable, accounts, working on your website. So, that's been the biggest challenge.
Juggling everything. Well, you got all these
Yeah,
spinning
just
plates.
juggling
You got all these spinning
constantly
plates in
and
front of you. You're just trying to keep it all going. That's
yeah,
amazing.
yeah, and at the same time trying to keep your wife and your family happy by spending time with them and
Yeah,
and all part of that can never be understated, Paul, is your mental health.
yeah,
Making time for yourself. So because if you're not in a good place emotionally and mentally and physically, then you're not going to do your business any good either.
no,
So it's a whole lot of everything. But yeah, that's the biggest challenge is and I think I've found my personal experience that when I went into renewables that all of those things that I just discussed are magnified, 1,000 times over almost because the sales cycle traditionally for any construction product that I've sold in the past, it's traditionally about 2 years. It's not like selling a car where Paul comes in to see Barry, looks at a car once, maybe twice, takes it for a test drive, says, yeah, I'm going to buy that car.
yeah. Have you got it in
That
black?
sales process is like 2 weeks.
Exactly.
In construction products and specification products in general, that's at least 2 years. By the time,
Yeah,
if you're an
so it's a
architect,
long
Paul, and
haul.
I go call on you, you're an architect or you're a developer putting up a building. I go see you and I say, I've got this nice aluminum cladding, what are you using for cladding now? Oh, that looks nice. And I'll think about it and maybe I do a lunch and learn for your people and I lug you samples and 2 years later, maybe Paul puts a building up and he specifies Barry's aluminum cladding,
Yeah.
and Barry eventually gets paid for that. But in the renewable sector, that education process, especially new renewables, is magnified 1,000 times over, because you're introducing products that, frankly, people don't know about yet, they haven't seen yet, and they're a little bit reluctant to
Definitely a
use.
lot more education involved there, isn't there?
A lot more education involved, and a lot, to be frank, a lot more capital expenditure involved in,
Yeah.
getting that product known and specified. I don't know if you ever watch shows like Shark Tank or what have you. As an entrepreneur, I do from time to time, and one of the questions they always, invariably ask the entrepreneurs is, what's your uh, CAC, customer acquisition costs? And I wouldn't even want to put a number on my customer
No, nor
acquisition
me.
costs right now.
Nor
It would
me.
be well in the thousands of dollars,
Yeah.
because you have to factor in the trade shows that you do.
Yeah.
Uh, I've joined, I belong to 10 different renewable energy associations that help me get the message out there and network and promote
Mm.
these new innovations and that type of thing. So it's a very long and extensive process, but
Yeah.
hopefully will pay off in the long run.
I'm sure it will do. So, Barrett, it's come to that time in our interview that I'd like to put you guys on the spot, and you've been very good all the way through this. Um, is there anything you can give back to the industry today as a takeaway for our listeners?
Yeah, the one thing that I will give to the industry right now is to, and I can really only speak, for Canada and, maybe North America perhaps, but is that we just been focused too long and too much on the go-tos, the solar farms, the solar rooftops, and the large wind turbines. As I said, those are great and we need them and they're welcome, but we really need to start thinking outside the box, Paul, and start looking at these there's, my goodness, thousands of innovations on the go right
Yeah.
now at various stages, whether they're prototype, whether they've been patented, whether they're in use. And we need to be open to using those, because we're just not going to reach our goals, these very aggressive goals that we set as a government and as a society, to reduce our carbon emissions without, introducing these new products. So, my one piece of advice would be just to think outside the box and be open to looking at some of the new stuff that's out there, because it's amazing. And,
Yeah.
in my career, I've never seen the amount of innovation and just pure, frankly, genius that has gone into developing some of these products. So I think the sooner, the sooner we as an industry embrace those new products and say, you know what, I'm going to spend time and money introducing and promoting those, then
Yeah.
I think, the faster we'll reach our goals. And I've been beating the drum with government when it comes to that in Canada. When I first got into this sector, a couple of years ago, I was encouraged. Listen, Paul, I knew it was going to I knew I was going to be bleeding cash for a couple of years. I mean, it's just the way it is. I'm not naive, and fortunately, I had little nest egg set aside so I could pay my bills. But, I was also encouraged by just countless government announcements at all levels saying that they were going to provide money to, support innovative new renewable companies and to help us transition to a green new economy. And, government, to their credit, has delivered on that, but they've been uber focused on the stuff that's been here for years. supporting the large wind farms and solar farms and that type of thing. And it's been a real task on my part to, you know, to kind of educate them on these other new great ideas that are out there that we should be supporting in some way. So,
Yeah. I think it's quite refreshing what you're saying there because, as well, it's great putting all this renewable generation in there, but what we're not considering that all that renewable generation is going to actually manage the waste of energy we're using. So why not actually bring in other technologies to drive the energy down, and then you won't need so much renewables on the roof or to request. So for
yeah,
me, is it I mentioned
yeah.
to this offline. It's a three-pronged approach. We need to do the energy management, we need to do the renewables, and then we've got the environment as well to consider. So we've all got a part to play, and it's all about collaboration, isn't it?
Yeah, it is all about collaboration. And yeah, you hit the nail on the head with the three-pronged approach. And unfortunately, I don't think, we're always cognizant of using that
Yeah,
three-pronged approach. And I think it's absolutely necessary. And one thing that I've tried to be cognizant of with my products is that, certainly the waste part of it needs to be addressed
yeah,
because
yeah.
and just the impact, just because you have a renewable energy product doesn't mean that it's kind to the environment, Paul.
No, no.
And we need to have these frank discussions as to what each product or each innovation, what's our environmental footprint on that. For
Yeah,
instance, going back to the little low side vertical wind turbines, you, they're quiet, they don't harm the birds, they don't harm the environment, and they go into this little hole that's about 3 feet deep. So there's not, we don't need to go in there and bring excavators in and drill a huge hole to sink a foundation to support these. So I think that discussion needs to be part of. We can't always focus on the dollars and cents, and I think. Listen, I trust it. I get it. We've all got bills to pay. We're here to make a profit, but big picture thinking requires us to look at everything. The products that we're promoting. It can't always be about ROI. It can't be, about, okay, if I spend $100,000 on your wind turbine, how quickly am I going to pay that back? That's an important component, obviously,
yeah.
but it should never be, when it comes to renewables, cost should never be the number one mitigating factor, and I think that's, you hit the nail on the head with waste and environmental impact. We need to focus on that more.
It's a 360 view, isn't it, that we need to
It is.
be focusing on. Barry, I'd like to say thank you very much for joining us today, and thank you for your compliments in the beginning. I'll make sure I hold on to
Yeah.
those. I really appreciate your words there, and thank you for your time today and sharing your entrepreneurial sort of views on what you wanted to do within this industry. So thank you.
Yeah, no, my pleasure, Paul, and sincerely, keep doing what you're doing. You're People like you are the voice in the wilderness for us right now, and every voice, what you're doing is you're bringing people together worldwide, and that's what we need. And the more discussion we have with our colleagues worldwide, the more we're going to learn and we're going to collaborate. And so, what? Kudos to you. Keep it up.
Thank you very much. And please, Barry, you and your family stay safe in these times.
Yeah, yeah. Thank you, Paul. Unfortunately, it looks like Halifax might be in the eye of another hurricane this
Oh dear.
coming weekend. So
You
we're
stay.
getting ready to batten down the hatches. But
Yeah.
anyway, we're Maritimers. We're hardy. We'll survive. So.